Have you ever wondered why, no matter how hard you work, it feels like you're running on a treadmill, sweating, moving, but never really getting anywhere financially? You're not alone. In fact, according to the Federal Reserve, nearly 40% of Americans wouldn't be able to cover a $400 emergency without going into debt. That's not just a statistic, it's a wake-up call. Because what keeps most people stuck isn't always bad luck or a low paycheck. It's the invisible money traps we fall into without even realizing it. Today, we're pulling the curtain back on these traps. If you can spot them early and start making small changes, you can save yourself from decades of paycheck-to-paycheck stress. Let's break it down. Trap #10, not knowing what you're invested in. What if I told you the biggest risk isn't losing money in the market, it's not knowing what's happening with your money at all? Think about it. A lot of people treat investing like tossing cash into a black box and hoping it spits out more later. Maybe they buy a fund a friend mentioned, or follow a hot stock tip from an uncle at a family dinner. But here's the problem. If you don't understand what you're invested in, you're basically gambling blindfolded. The difference between a good enough return and a life-changing return is massive. Let's run some quick numbers. Imagine you invest $10,000 and add $500 every month for 30 years. At 7% annual growth, a conservative long-term market return, you'd end up with about $682,000. Not bad, right? But at 10%, which is closer to the average return of the S&P 500, you'd have $1.26 million. That's nearly $600,000 more, simply because you chose the right vehicle. The takeaway? Don't just hope your investments work. Learn the basics. Read a book, watch credible finance channels, or sit with a financial advisor who explains things in plain English. Because ignorance here doesn't just cost you, it robs your future self. Trap #9, actively trading. Now let's talk about the fantasy that keeps Wall Street apps buzzing, day trading. The idea that you can outsmart the market with a few clever buys and sells. Feels tempting, right? Like you're a financial ninja slicing profits out of every market dip. But here's the truth. Beating the market is harder than winning a rigged carnival game. Warren Buffett himself has said most people are better off just putting their money in an index fund and leaving it alone. Even hedge fund managers with millions in resources, teams of analysts, and access to data you and I can only dream of fail to consistently outperform the market. Why? Fees, taxes, and, most of all, emotions. The market dips and suddenly panic sets in. The market surges and greed takes over. And each trade comes with costs that nibble away at your returns like termites on wood. If you simply tracked the S&P 500 over the past 50 years, you'd average around 10% annually. That's boring, yes, but boring also means reliable, and reliable beats broke every time. So next time you're tempted to time the market, remember, even the pros can't do it consistently. Your best bet? Time in the market, not timing the market. Trap #8, not tax planning. Let's talk about the silent killer of wealth, taxes. For most people, taxes are their single biggest expense, bigger than rent, bigger than groceries, bigger than that car payment that feels like a mortgage. But here's the thing. Rich people don't just accept taxes the way most middle-class families do. They strategize. They play the game with the rules everyone has access to, but few bother learning. For example, retirement accounts like 401ks, IRAs, and Roth IRAs let you reduce how much the government takes today or in the future. Real estate? That's another playground. Mortgage interest, insurance, property expenses, even depreciation. All of these chip away at your taxable income. And here's a big one. How you earn your money matters. Employees are taxed differently than business owners. A business owner can deduct expenses, a laptop, travel, even part of a home office that an employee cannot. According to the IRS, small business owners can sometimes legally reduce taxable income by 20 to 30% just through proper planning. That's like getting a raise without working extra hours. The bottom line, don't ignore tax strategy. Sit down with a CPA. It's not about dodging taxes, it's about not tipping the government more than you legally owe. Trap #7, being unwilling to make changes. Here's a tough pill to swallow. Comfort is often the enemy of growth. Many people stay stuck because they don't want to make uncomfortable changes, even when those changes could transform their finances. Maybe it's moving to a cheaper city. Maybe it's getting a roommate for a year. Maybe it's taking a job in a new field that pays 20% more, but comes with the anxiety of a new boss and coworkers. Fear of change keeps people anchored to the same paycheck, the same expenses, and the same financial rut. But think about this. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Every major step forward in life has risk attached, but often the risk of staying exactly where you are is even bigger. Trap #6, not buying a house. Now, this one's controversial. Some gurus scream, rent forever, it's cheaper. Others swear, buying is always better. The truth? It depends. But here's what the numbers say. According to the Federal Reserve, the average homeowner's net worth is around $255,000, while the average renter's net worth is barely $6,000. That's not a gap, it's a canyon. Why? Because a mortgage isn't just debt, it's a form of forced savings. Every month, part of your payment chips away at the loan while your home, historically, increases in value. Over time, you're building equity, wealth you can use later. Yes, owning comes with maintenance and taxes. And yes, if you buy more house than you can afford, it can turn into a nightmare. But for many, buying a reasonably priced home is one of the fastest ways to escape the hamster wheel of renting. Think of it this way. Renters pay for a roof over their head forever. Owners pay until the mortgage is gone, and then they own the roof. Trap #5, not taking risks. Here's a paradox. People are terrified of losing money, so they play it safe and end up losing money anyway. Take cash, for example. Holding too much of it feels safe. No market dips, no volatility. But inflation quietly eats at it every year. That $100 bill from 10 years ago buys way less today. That's not safety, it's slow erosion. Growth requires risk. Switching careers, starting a side hustle, buying a rental property, these all come with the chance of failure. But they also come with the chance of significant reward. The key is smart risk, not reckless gambling, but calculated moves backed by preparation. Ask yourself, what's the bigger risk? Trying something new and maybe failing, or never trying and guaranteeing you stay stuck? The irony is, by avoiding risks entirely, many people end up taking the riskiest path of all, staying broke forever. Trap #4, spending money because you deserve it. Ah, the most seductive trap of them all, the treat yourself mentality. You work hard, you grind all week, so you convince yourself that buying the new car, the fancy watch, or the expensive vacation is your reward. But here's the twist. If that reward puts you into debt or prevents you from saving, it's not really a reward. It's a punishment with shiny wrapping paper. Let's take cars as an example. Americans spend an average of $700 per month on car payments, according to Experian. That's over $8,000 a year, money that could be building wealth instead of losing value in your driveway. Now, I'm not saying you should never treat yourself. Life isn't meant to be lived like a monk. But the question is, are you rewarding your present self at the expense of your future self? Because your future self will not thank you for that shiny toy if it came with years of financial stress. So let's pause here. We've covered traps #10 through #4. Not knowing what you're invested in. Actively trading. Ignoring tax planning. Refusing to make changes. Not buying a home. Avoiding risks. And spending money just because you deserve it. These aren't just random habits, they're patterns that quietly drain middle-class families year after year. And if you can start sidestepping even a few of them, you'll already be miles ahead of the average person. But wait until you hear the top 3 traps, because they're the most dangerous of all. In part 2, we'll uncover the mental roadblocks and career decisions that quietly chain people to the rat race for life. And the final trap? It's the one mistake that guarantees you stay stuck if you don't fix it. So stick around, because avoiding these last few traps could change everything. Welcome back. In part 1, we looked at 7 money traps that quietly rob your wealth while making you feel like you're working harder than ever. Now let's get into the top 3, the ones that aren't just about money, but about mindset. Because if you don't tackle these, you'll stay locked in the middle-class rat race no matter how much you earn. Trap #3, saying I don't care about money. How many times have you heard someone shrug and say, I don't care about money? Maybe you've even said it yourself. It sounds humble, even noble. But here's the reality. Almost everyone cares about money, whether they admit it or not. Think about it. If money didn't matter, why do we spend 40 hours a week working for it? Why do we choose homes, schools, and lifestyles based on how much of it we have? Pretending money doesn't matter is like pretending food doesn't matter. You can say it, but your stomach will tell a different story. Now, let's clear something up. Not caring about buying flashy cars or designer brands? Totally fine. Not caring about being a billionaire? Also fine. But not caring at all? That's dangerous. Because money affects the roof over your head, the food on your plate, and the time you get to spend with the people you love. When someone says they don't care about money, what they often mean is they're avoiding responsibility. They'd rather not deal with the stress of budgeting, planning, or investing. But avoiding the subject doesn't make it disappear. It just makes you more vulnerable to being exploited by employers, lenders, and even your own bad habits. The truth is, caring about money isn't greedy, it's practical. It's what lets you buy freedom instead of just stuff. Trap #2, staying in the wrong career. Here's a big one. Picking the wrong career, or worse, staying in one that drains you, is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make. The system pushes us to choose a career path as teenagers, when most of us barely know how to manage our time, let alone our lives. So people end up spending years and often thousands of dollars on degrees, only to discover that the job either doesn't pay enough or doesn't bring them any joy. Fast forward, and they're stuck in a cycle. The paycheck is just enough to keep them afloat, but not enough to get them ahead. And because the bills pile up, student loans, car payments, credit cards, walking away feels impossible. But here's the thing, staying stuck in the wrong career costs far more than making a change. Let's say you're earning $40,000 a year. If switching industries could raise that to $60,000, that's an extra $20,000 every year. Over a decade, that's $200,000, money you'll never see if you stay frozen in fear. And it's not just about money, it's about energy. Working a job you hate drains you. It makes you less productive in other areas of life. That stress bleeds into your relationships, your health, even your ability to think long term. Now, switching careers isn't easy. It requires planning, maybe reskilling, and certainly some courage. But ask yourself, what's scarier? Taking a temporary leap into the unknown or staying trapped in the same loop until retirement? The middle class often clings to job security, but in today's world, job security is an illusion. The only real security is adaptability. The sooner you embrace that, the sooner you start moving forward. Trap #1, thinking none of this will work for me. And here we are, the deadliest trap of them all. The mindset that whispers, yeah, those strategies are great for other people, but not for me. Maybe you've thought it. Maybe you've said it out loud. And I get it. It's easy to believe your situation is uniquely hopeless. Maybe you're in debt. Maybe your paycheck barely covers rent. Maybe you feel like you've tried everything and nothing has worked. But here's the harsh truth. Believing it won't work for you becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell yourself you can't change, you won't even try. And if you never try, of course, nothing changes. Look, I'm not saying building wealth is equally easy for everyone. It's not. Some people start with advantages, supportive families, better schools, higher incomes. but history is full of people who started with nothing and still found a way to improve their financial lives. The common thread? They refused to believe the door was permanently locked. It may require sacrifice. It may require temporary discomfort. But the alternative, doing nothing, isn't really safer. It's just slower failure. So the most dangerous money trap isn't overspending or bad investments, it's hopelessness. Because as soon as you believe you're stuck, you are. So let's zoom out. What have we really been talking about across these 10 traps? It's not just about dollars and cents. It's about awareness. Most people aren't failing because they're lazy or because they don't make enough. They're failing because they operate on autopilot, falling into the same patterns the system nudges them toward. They don't know where their money is invested. They chase quick wins in the stock market. They ignore taxes, cling to comfort, rent forever, avoid risks, and spend on treats that set them back. Then they convince themselves money doesn't matter, stick with careers that drain them, and finally, they tell themselves nothing will ever work. But here's the hopeful part. You don't need to fix all 10 at once. Start with one. Maybe you finally sit down and understand your investments. Or maybe you decide to stop saying, "I don't care about money," and start budgeting seriously. One step at a time, and suddenly you're not in the trap anymore. You're moving forward. Remember, financial freedom isn't about having millions in the bank tomorrow. It's about building habits today that compound over time. It's about stacking small wins until they snowball. The rat race only continues if you keep running in circles. But if you step off the wheel and take control, even in small ways, you'll realize something powerful. You don't have to stay stuck. So ask yourself right now, what's the first trap you're ready to walk away from?